You're once again welcome to SS305, Human Behavior in Health and Illness, and quickly we'll be going through study session 8, the sick role. Once an individual or a sick person accepts that his or her symptoms are a sign of illness, transition is then made from the symptom experience to the sick role. Here, the individual begins to relinquish some or all social roles. In this study session, you will be introduced to the background of the sick roles, role theories, and the rights and obligations of the sick role. When you have studied this session, you should be able to describe the background of the sick role, identify the rights and obligations of person's sick role theory, discuss various sick role theories, and finally explain the concept of illness as deviant behavior. Background of the sick role. The sick role is a concept arising from the work of Talcott Parson, an American sociologist who was concerned with understanding how the sick person relates to the whole social system and what the person's function is in that system. Sick role behavior is an activity undertaken for the purpose of getting well by those who consider themselves ill. It can involve, for example, seeking medical advice, taking time off work, and relinquishing responsibility for one's own care to friends and family. The concept of the sick role is extremely broad, and its application in the hospital setting is not always simple. Hospitals are complex social environments that can disrupt patients' natural transition to the sick role. This is particularly true when patients and healthcare professionals have different expectations of patient-hospital roles. Ultimately, the sick role and sick role behavior could be seen as the logical extension of illness behavior to complete integration into the medical care system. The rights and obligations of the sick role. Being sick comes with some rights and obligations. People who are sick are generally expected to get better and also work on getting better by going to the doctor, complying with medical regimens, and cooperating with treatment plans. The rights of the sick role are therefore as follows. 1. The sick person is exempt from normal social roles. An individual's illness is a ground for his or her exemption from normal role performance and social responsibilities. This exemption, however, is relative to the nature and severity of the illness. The more severe the illness, the greater the exception. Exemption requires legitimation by the physician as the authority on what constitutes sickness. Number 2, the sick person is not responsible for his or her condition. An individual's illness is usually thought to be beyond his or her control. A morbid condition of the body needs to be changed, and some curative process apart from personal willpower, such as motivation, is needed to get well. Now the obligations of the sick role. 1. The sick person should try to get well. This has to do with the recognition by the sick person that being sick is undesirable, and exemption from normal responsibilities is temporary and conditional upon the desire to regain normal health. Thus, the sick person has an obligation to get well. Number 2, the sick person should seek technical, competent help and cooperate with the physician. The obligation to get well further demands the sick person to seek technically competent help, usually from a physician. He or she is also expected to cooperate with the physician in the process of trying to get well. Patient participation in the hospital sick role. It has been discovered that patients who take part in developing and evaluating their care plan goals showed significant improvements in goal attainment compared to those whose goals were developed and evaluated by staff alone. When patients contribute to the decision-making process, they tend to be more satisfied with the decisions made and demonstrate greater compliance and better health outcomes. Patients are being asked to adopt two opposing roles. In the sick role, they are passive recipients of treatment and care, while the prevailing health service emphasizes their active involvement in their care. Research suggests that patients adopt both roles at different times while they are in the hospital. They were all enthusiastic about participating in their care in the initial stage of illness, but as their illness subsided, they became more interested in participating in tasks such as filling in menu cards and deciding when to do an activity or the other. Role theory. Role theory states that human behavior is guided by expectations held both by the individual and other people. The expectations correspond to different roles individuals perform or enact in their daily lives. Roles consist of a set of rules or norms that function as plans or blueprints to guide behavior. Roles specify what goals should be pursued, what tasks must be accomplished, and what performances are required in a given scenario or situation. The role theory is in fact predictive, as it implies that if we have information about the role expectations for a specified position, a significant portion of the behavior of the persons occupying that position can be predicted. Many role theorists see role theory as one of the most compelling theories bridging individual behavior and social structure. The first role theory is person-seek role theory. For persons, individuals play set roles within particular institutional settings, such as the family, workplace, medical system, and so on. The persons argued that the ill take on a sick role, which provides them with a set of responsibilities and privileges. One of the prominent characteristics of persons theory is an asymmetry between the roles of patients and healers. Their rights and obligations are not equal, with the more institutionalized and legitimized functions of doctors taking precedence over the role of the patient. Then we have the Weber's theory. Weber identified three types of authority: charismatic, using the force of personality; traditional, that is how it has always been; and rational or legal authority, which relies on the framework of rules and specialist knowledge. While individual doctors may have any or all of these types of authority in some situations, it is assumed that their credibility as a profession is based on their patients accepting their rational or legal authority in making diagnoses, prescribing treatment, and writing sick notes. Last of all is the Freud's sick theory. This Freud's concept of transference and counterference led persons to see the doctor-patient relationship as analogous to that of the parent and child. The idea that a sick person has conflicting drives both to recover from the illness and to continue to enjoy the secondary gains of attention and exemption from normal duties also stems from a Freudian model of the structure of personality. Illness as a deviant behavior. Number one, the biological approach. This view involves the presence of a pathogenic mechanism within the body that can be objectively documented. The diagnosis of a disease, for example, results from a correlation of observable symptoms with knowledge about the physiological functioning of the human being. Ideally, a person is defined as healed when his or her symptoms, complaints, or the result of a physical examination or laboratory test indicates an abnormality. Number two, the sociological approach. The conceptualization of illness as a deviance behavior does makes it a sociologically relevant variable. However, it restricts the analysis of illness to the framework of a social event. This is in accord with the intention of the sickness as deviance perception in sociology to focus exclusively on social properties of being healed, and thus to exclude biological properties defined only by the physician. Last of all is the functionalist approach. This approach is based on the view that society is held together in a state of equilibrium by harmonious patterns of shared norms and values. What makes social life possible is the expectation that people would behave in accordance with the norms and values common to their particular social system. This process is functional because it results in social harmony and counterbalances dysfunctional processes like crime and mental illness that disrupts social order. This is the end of study session 8. Thank you for listening.